How to sell their home as fast as possible. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming. Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same. It is a massive mistake, and it's a mistake that will cost you money, not the agents. Your clients are free to just walk away.
All our clients tonight could watch this and say, take my house off the market.
You need to find the least terrible estate agent. But here's my advice on how to price when you're renegotiating. There's nothing else you need. If you've got this 150 quid, that's it, you can move in.
Oh, mate. Oh.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another live stream, Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie. And this evening, I have got a special guest joining me, who is a RICS registered chartered surveyor and registered valuer. He's also an estate agent for the last couple of years as well. So he's got a really interesting and unique perspective on house prices. Now, he's just waiting for us in the green room. We'll be with us in just a minute. But I wanted to start by sharing with you that right now, my number one campaign, up until now, I've been trying to help people prevent getting into negative equity, and that still remains the same. But it's become clear to me that so many sellers are unaware of the fact that you can be tied into a sole agency contract with an estate agent and sign that contract without realizing it. I'm just going to share with you the results of a survey I just posted on YouTube a little bit earlier. So look at this. Almost half of the people responding so far out of 100 didn't know that some agents will lock you into a contract that you can't exit until it expires. And they can be typically 12 weeks, but at the moment I'm hearing about 20 weeks, 26 weeks. That's 6-month contracts. But of the rest of you, 16% were aware, you signed anyway, and your agent made you happy, okay? But that's quite a small number out of the total. So number one, be aware if you are selling, some agents will try and lock you into a sole agency agreement, meaning that if you're not happy with them, tough luck, you're stuck with them. You cannot put your house on the market with anyone else until that contract expires. And in a falling market, the nightmare scenario is you realize you've signed up with an agent that's not going to sell your house, and you need to sell, and you can't because you're locked into a contract with them. So I want to make sure anyone selling, number one, does not sign into a sole agency, long-term sole agency agreement. And number two, don't wait till the new year. Get your house on the market as soon as you can. Every week counts right now, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. And other people have different opinions. And I'm going to bring Andrew Simmonds in just a minute. Andrew and I actually were just discussing before. I'm going to bring him in now. Welcome, Andrew. Good evening. Hi there. How you doing?
All good, Charlie.
Now let's get the just got the chat comments. Now, guys, can you all hear us okay? Unusually, we haven't got any comments, and we're here for your questions this evening. So if you are watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, could you just say hi in the comments? Because I'm worried that they're not actually showing, which would be a problem. Forgive me while I just double check that, because that's really, normally I've got a whole bunch of people who said hello by now, which makes me think that there's something wrong with the comments in my streaming software. So
they're on mine, Charlie.
You can see them, can you?
Yeah, they're all on mine.
Why can't I see them? That's going to cause a problem. So you can see questions.
I can, yeah.
And are you able to click on any of them and make them come on the screen or not? Or do you have? You may not have that.
I've not done this before. I'm
you want to pick one that isn't too sweary, and just see if it works.
I don't think I can click on them.
No. Right. Well, I don't know what to do other than put a chat. Oh, there we are. Okay. We're going to have them on screen then when we come to them in a minute. But I cannot see any of those questions, so we'll just have to put them all on screen like that in a minute. Now, what I wanted to do with everyone is to say the number one topic of conversation on this channel so far has been about what people think is going to happen to house prices. And I've been accused of having a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball. All I've done is I've done my research and found information that whether it was my 8 reasons video in August or my 10 reasons video in September where house prices are going to collapse or fall, etc., and my more recent video 4 reasons why house prices are going to fall 35%. These are not, in my view, so much predictions as if you just it takes a bit of time and effort to go and find all the numbers, put them together. You don't need a crystal ball to see what the government is telling us is going to happen. They're telling us that what's going to happen with interest rates or what's likely to happen and what's going to happen with energy prices. So those are not crystal ball, not required for those things, right? You just need to use a bit of noggin and put the numbers together. Now, Andrew's been a chartered surveyor for 20 years and a registered valuer, and has recently become, as you say, April 21, was it?
Yeah, I haven't been a chartered surveyor for 20 years, but I've been working in the property industry for a good 20 years. I qualified in 2017, I believe.
Okay.
So, but there we go. That's just a point of order, Charlie.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna. Right. Okay. I've got the questions coming on my iPad now. So you and I. So I'm saying, let's just for everyone watching, let's remind them, right? Calling out a predicted national average house price drop figure is such a nebulous, vague thing to do, because whatever drops happen will vary regionally, and they won't just vary by region, they'll vary in timing. Some places, I think the Northeast prices were still going up in the last, I can't remember which one it was. Someone said they're the last region for house prices to actually start falling officially is the Northeast. So you not only have regional variations in price movements, but you have regional variations in timings as well. And of course, ultimately, if you're moving house, you only care what your property is worth or the one that you're buying is worth. And the only way you will ever get to find out well enough exactly what those values are is by really knowing your local market and by talking to people who know your local market. And if you're a buyer, that means being out and viewing properties in your local market and meeting the agents and hearing what they're saying about it. So you can then form your own opinion. Every single day, I'm still getting questions from people saying, "Hi, Charlie, I found a property. It's on for this price. What price do you think I should offer?" I can't tell you that. No one can tell you that, because I don't know whether the agent that listed it has overvalued it or valued it sensibly. I don't know if there are other people bidding. I don't know the desirability of the situation of the seller. I don't know any of those things. So this is why what I do is I try and provide you with as much information as possible to help you go away and formulate your own opinions. Now, let me start with a question for Andrew for him to answer, and then we'll start taking some questions from the audience. Now, my question is, Andrew, on your, by the way, Andrew is the star of a property podcast called The Right Move. Sorry, what's the title of it?
It's The Right Move ?
Right. It's The Right Move. So 2 words, Right Move ? Nothing to do with Right Move.
No.
And it's a weekly property podcast where you
monthly.
and John
We try and get out monthly. Myself and JP.
Okay, and it's called The Right Move Property Podcast, and it's actually really entertaining. Listen, even the episodes where I'm not on there are very entertaining.
Are you coming on next week, aren't you?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I've been asked for a very good comment, so that's great. And that's how we encountered each other, actually. And you said recently on the last Right Move Property Podcast that I heard, you thought that house prices, you could see them falling 20%. So I thought I'd just start by asking you to let my audience know your thinking behind that as a actually qualified professional registered valuer and estate agent and chartered surveyor. You're far more qualified than I am. So tell me what you think.
Well, it's simple, really. We've been valuing property at the same level for about 12 months now. Now, okay, you've just talked exactly what needs to be the caveat here. It is, and there's a word that I saw today with Rightmove, and Rightmove put out a sort of circular to agents, and it used the word hyperlocal, and I really like that because actually it is exactly what it is. It is. You described agents really well. Agents know their market, their village, their town, everything within a radius. there are people either side of that jump in on it and vice versa. But being so local is so important, and to have that knowledge. And there aren't always, or there are other agents around. There's not just one in any location, but it is really important to use that spread. Now, going back to the point, I've been valuing properties for probably since early summer, at the value that they were 12 months ago. And so I've seen this.
Sorry, Andrew, can I cut in? So you're saying early summer. So you're May, June 2022.
Yeah.
You've been valuing properties at the same price they were a year before that?
Yeah. So seeing properties a year previous. So, at the moment, I'm looking at what we were looking at back in November last year. Now, don't forget, though, in November, December last year, we were coming out of an absolute boom. You could not... I literally didn't have enough hours as an agent in the day to show people around houses. I had queues out the door. I was back to back 6 days a week. I didn't have a time to do anything else, but I was just constant. And every single offer was over asking in that period. And you've even got people coming now through who say, where do I need to start with an offer on this house? And quite often it's very much, well, take a step back. You need to start at the asking price if it's that that desirable. But if it's not selling, of course you don't start at the asking price. But we that's where we are. So valuation wise, I'm looking at 12 months prior. What you've also got, and I'm gonna caveat valuations. I'm a registered valuer, of course, and so I can look at things slightly differently. What I would say an agent does is what's known as a market appraisal. Now, that is an estate agent that looks at the market, that knows the market. Now, a market appraisal can be wildly different between agent to agent. Some want stock, so they will value a property to where they really want you to believe it's worth as a vendor. And that's a dangerous place to be if you see that. Now, I've got a couple of examples that I can tell you about if we've got time for that, where local to me in North Somerset, they have had, they've well overvalued or, given it this huge price of a market appraisal. And I've had to come back, and maybe I've lost that instruction on day one, but actually I've come back to it, and vendors have said, Andrew, do you know what? You're absolutely right. And we've got it to the right level, but it's taken time. In that time, you've lost buyers. The property's got a stigma. Why is it not sold? There's a lot of things to consider. But yes, in a nutshell, where we sit now, there is absolutely, well, in fact, I think we've turned for sure the downward spiral, but actually we are looking at what we were looking at 12 months ago. That's just fact.
Right. Okay. And so you see them eventually. You think top to bottom will be 20%, right? At the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I would go so far as saying I think we are looking at probably a 20. In where I am, I would stick my neck out on 20% by March.
Wow. So 20% off the highs by March. Now, can you help us with the time lagging of that? You're talking about actual transaction prices.
Yeah.
So the public won't see March's transactions until they're reported a few months later, will they?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's another critical thing for viewers to really understand, because you hit on it loads, Charlie, with your comments on this and market commentary. We are, the public are seeing it 6 months prior is when the transaction happened, before it's in the public domain. Yeah. So it's hard, because an estate agent will come and give you a market appraisal and say, oh, do you know what? We can get you this much for your property. Okay, good luck, give it a go. But as I said, I've seen people come back to me good couple of months later who have said, we haven't had any viewers. And that's been in a buoyant market as well. So, you know, where this time last year, sort of coming into 2022, we were, seeing the stock levels very low. There were agents who were really overvaluing in their market appraisals to win an instruction, and that's kind of had a negative impact on the market. So it's driven, through COVID, let's be frank, no one knew where the market was going. So agents were overvaluing and getting the money for those properties. So, it was pushing and driving those prices up. Don't forget though, if we take a 20% drop in the market now, all that does is regularize a 10% increase since pre-COVID, which is a regular market increase.
Yeah.
So we are going to regularize the market by having a drop. It's not something to be worried about. It's just a cycle that happens. And I think, the doom isn't about the property market. The doom is about other things happening in the world.
Yeah.
If you watch certain news outlets that are giving more doom than others, I mean, I'll give you an example. This morning, live 2 news channels were reporting on the same thing. The fact that in October, that there was growth of 0.5% in the market, in the economy. Prior to that was 6% down, I think, in September. One news outlet, or remain nameless, was saying, that is, it's up, it's positive that we're going up. Another is saying, well, it's a net negative, and not talking about the positives. So, we have to look at things realistically, and not look at where this big doom really.
Right. Okay. Right. I got a quick. Can we go? We go into the questions. I've got one here from Matthew Slight on YouTube. These are all YouTube guys because I can't see the LinkedIn or Facebook questions. So I'm sorry if you're sending questions from there. As a surveyor, do your most recent valuations take into account recent Halifax and nationwide house price index drops, or do you use your own indices?
So it's really interesting. I don't do a lot of lender valuations because I don't like the risks to my PI. My vals are very much probate. They're very much so HMRC type valuations and matrimonials and solicitor led. Okay. So I do take into account all data, but I generally will work with my own, and I will look at comps that are more relevant to the specific property. Yeah, sorry, comparables. Yeah.
Okay. And next question here. One Coding Life on YouTube says, as a surveyor, are you seeing properties being down valued at the moment? Is it becoming more common?
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting question. It isn't being any more common than it has been for the last 12 months. So, we are. So if I look at this with 2 hats on, of course, because if I'm selling a property and a registered valuer working for a lender goes out and down values a property, it is happening more and more. So as an agent, I'm tending to favour or to go to my client, which is the vendor, with offers that are either cash or high deposits, lower loan to values, to enable that gap to be very much bridged. You are clearly at a 10% deposit, you're at disadvantage straight away when you're looking at lending, especially with a down valued market, property in the market. Yes, it is a common thing, but it's no more common than it has been. I think there are less and less registered valuers who are working for lenders. As I allude, it's not really worth the weight on my PI. A friend of mine who's a time served registered valuer, in a small practice in Bristol, has been talking to me about his PI being about 100 grand's worth of premium. So
just for our viewers, that's your professional indemnity insurance, where you insure yourself against getting evaluations wrong, basically.
Yeah, so his insurance premium is that high, so he's very much keen not to do too many bank files. And in fact, the banks are bringing in their own valuers now in house. So they're being much more cautious. But you see, I then see it when I get a call from a valuer to ask me for comps, maybe of a property I'm not selling, but it's about talking those through and trying to get the real value. You know, you've seen properties overvalued and oversold really over the last couple of years, which has driven it up, and those are creating that kind of imbalance, if you like, and it causes a valuer quite a headache trying to get it right.
I bet it does, especially when it's so time sensitive at the moment. We've got some great questions coming in here. Alex Groundwater, who I must confess is a really old school friend of mine, but he's a stats, I call him my quant guy, my stats guy. He's pointed out the last two major house price falls have continued from 89 to 95, which is 6 years, and 07 to 12, so 6 and 5 years respectively. So 20% by March is year one. So, I mean, you're saying 20% down by March next year, which I agree with, actually, in terms of timescales. I think you're spot on, 20% down by March next year. They're not going to stop falling in March, though, are they? Is that what you're saying? You think they'll stop falling there?
I don't know. I think we're going to have I think this is my view. I think we're going to have a sharp hit, but I do think it'll bottom. I don't think it's going to increase. I think it'll bottom. It'll be a drop. I'm not quite.
Uh-oh. I don't know if that's me. Hello? Guys, if you can hear me. I don't know if you've lost me or if you lost Andrew. Are you there? Oh, it's Andrew's internet's gone. Give me a second, guys. I will get him back. One moment. I will just WhatsApp him, tell him to come back. Because this is good stuff. Yeah. Okay. He's WhatsApping me. So are you back? No, he's not back yet. So I'm going to wait for him to come back in. Right, guys. Well, while we wait for Andrew to come back, I just want to point something out. So I think Andrew was just saying that he thinks that house prices are going to shot. Oh, here he is. He's back. So
Sorry.
right, got you. No problem.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I'm just saying, what if just to pick up on what you were saying, you think there'll be a sharp fall and then it'll kind of bottom out. They won't come back up, but you think they're then going to kind of stay there. He says so drop and then level out, you think?
Yeah, I think what will happen is, you know, we are saying 9% over the next drop. I think we'll come up. So I think it'll be down by about 10, 8, and we'll get that. And I think the OBR is quite be down 9% on average.
Andrew, having a real problem hearing you. You're cutting in and out. I don't know what to, we can see you fine, but your voice isn't synced with your sorry about the audio, guys. Thank you for your patience. I am going to just crack on here again, because you said that 20% down basically actually normalizes the market, I think was the word you used, or something like that. Well, I would agree with that, because we had these record price rises. In some areas, it was almost 20% up year on year in some areas, up to whatever May, I think it was. And so allowing that froth to come off the market, 20% down, puts us back to where we were kind of normally. But then you've got to factor in all of the negative economic situations, so that the fuel, the energy, the food, the inflation, the rising interest rates, etc. That's where I think another 15% comes off as well. So I think you're right. I think that there'll be sharp falls that will appear to happen in the first half of next year. And then I think you're going to still see they won't level out. In my opinion, house prices won't level out until the economy recovers. And that's not forecast to happen until Q2 2024. So almost another 18 months from now. And I think sharp falls first half of next year. I then think gradual falls. It'll continue to sort of just be crap in terms of actual house price performance. And only when the economy recovers, which is when they can lower interest rates again and inflation's come down again and some life can come back into the buying side of things, only then will we see prices start their normal behavior, which is then resuming sort of low to middle single digit percentage growth, 4 or 5% year on year growth, which is sort of normal, isn't it? When you get up to double digit growth, that's very, very high growth, historically speaking. So
yeah, 15% over COVID.
Andrew, I'm going to ask you to I'm going to kick you out again and ask you to come back in again because there's a real problem with your audio link. So I'll chuck you out, come back in again. Sorry about that, guys. Bear with me. I'm just going to look through your questions again. Here he is. He's back. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm also going to try and find more recent questions as well. Okay, someone's got a really interesting question here. What's going to happen when the baby boomers start dying?
Well, without video.
It's still doing the same. Your audio is cutting in and out. Oh, are you on a Wi-Fi connection or are you on a mobile connection?
No, I'm on Wi-Fi, but somebody try using Well,
yeah, no, it's not helping, unfortunately. It's not helping, unfortunately. You're still cutting in and out. I'm not sure. We might just have to... you put your camera back on. I don't think it was making any difference either way, the camera. Yeah, I mean, in a word, do you think... I mean, if you look historically at the data, there is going to be an increasing number of deaths, and a lot of baby boomers are property owners with very high equity levels. What do you have an expectation of what's going to happen? Are their properties going to be just put on the market and sold through probate, and their children taking the proceeds themselves, or do you think they're going to be doing equity? What happens when grandparents die and put their house on the market? What's typical in a probate scenario? Does one of the kids move in and buy the other kids out, or do they just sell the property and split the proceeds? What happens when, typically speaking, when people get to the end of their life and their house is on the market?
It is on options, really. I think there are people that will sell and split the pool where one person will ring, they'll move to it. It's a whole host of things.
I'm going to call it. I'm sorry. Your audio, it's impossible to make out what you're saying. I'm just going to, we've got a lot of people watching, and it's very, very difficult to actually get. I can see you fine. It's just a weird audio thing. Yeah, by all means, try switching your internet network. We'll give it one last try. Okay, I'll kick you out. Connect to your mobile network. See what happens then. Yeah. So if you can connect to your mobile network and then rejoin, and we'll try one more time. All right. Live broadcasting, guys. What a nightmare. Let me see. Yeah, that's a good idea. He's going to try mobile tethering. If that doesn't work, here we go. No, can't see him. He hasn't come back. If that doesn't work, I'll just get him on audio. Thank you, Michelle. Now, anyone who's got a good question, what is it about this jumper that people don't like? So, Andy, are you there? Yes. Hello? I can see you. Say something. Andrew, are you there? Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How am I?
Keep talking. I think it's doing the same thing. It might not be you. It might be something to do with the software here. But right. Do you know what if that doesn't work? I'm going to let's just put you on an audio call here. Just answer your phone.
Yeah.
Answer your phone. Stay there on video, and I'll mute you.
Hear me?
So if you can mute yourself,
You
you're gonna try. Are you trying to call me? It's not calling. So just give me a call. Sorry, guys. We're nearly there. I'm going to get Andrew on the phone. I can. If you mute your microphone on the screen, you're not. For some reason, you're not coming through. So let me call you again. There we are. Answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay, fantastic. Right, we can carry on. So you were talking about what happens when people. You're saying there's no common thing. It's just a big range of options when people die and the house goes on the market. It's not like there's no one more common outcome than other, is it? And do you have any opinions as a valuer? Have you got any data on what's expected because of the increased number of deaths to be expected because of the demographic baby boomers?
Again, it depends on location. You know, you can't run this as a specific across the board. It has to be hyper local again, really.
Okay, all right. It's gonna. I honestly, I don't have an opinion on it. It's really interesting because I think that there are going to be increasing numbers of properties coming onto the market from baby boomers dying out in their larger numbers. But what happens then? I mean, some people think it's going to be lots of equity release happening, and there are going to be kids who are inheriting the homes but can't afford to pay the inheritance tax, and therefore they're going to be forced to sell. And so there might actually be quite a lot of forced sales because some of them are actually quite valuable properties, and there's no money left to pay the inheritance tax. Therefore, the property's got to be sold, etc. Interesting stuff. Now, let me see if I can find another question for you.
So that was a question that I picked up on actually
Yeah.
earlier on. Somebody made a comment about Zoopla prices and
Yeah.
going through and looking at a price that they've seen on Zoopla.
Could you pick your phone up again? Because on speakerphone, it's coming out really badly here now. But when okay. So, what could you remind me what the question was about Zoopla prices?
It was somebody asked a question about doing a Zoopla valuation. It does the valuation. I can't remember because I got kicked out. I can't see the question any longer.
Let me see if I can find it.
It was quite towards the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so Alex Whitaker says, so I checked Zoopla for sold prices in my area, and I know there's a 4-month lag, but the prices sold and the prices asked are so different. Why are they pricing so high? Asking prices seem to be going higher.
Okay, so Zoopla use an algorithm to get to that, and there's absolutely no way that you should trust it. If you talk to Zoopla, they will tell you that they are getting much, much better and this, that, and the other. It's utter bull. The valuations, it's all about trying to drive traffic for Zoopla. Let's be frank, no one ever uses Zoopla as a portal anyway. But they're trying to drive that traffic. In fact, I know a lot of agents in my neck of the woods who are considering coming off Zoopla. In fact, I'm one of them. So okay. I wouldn't trust Zoopla as far as I would throw it.
Well, it might be actually helpful for our viewers to understand the business model of these portals and the way that they make money. So Zoopla and Rightmove both have a similar situation where they charge agents a fixed monthly subscription in order to advertise. And in return for that, they're supposed to give the agent as many leads, so buyer and seller and tenant and landlord leads as possible. And one of the ways in which they attract these inquiries is by saying, hey, come and find out what your house is worth. And they have these automatic valuation tools. And that's a way of capturing your data on the Zoopla website, which they can then send on to agents. So the point is, I mean, I've always said that any form of automatic valuation tool is not only hopelessly inaccurate, but in any case, the only intention of that is to capture people's contact information and sell it to agents, or give it to agents to then call you about, just to get you to inquire, basically. So I've always said, if you actually seriously need to know what your home is likely to sell for, you need to very carefully choose a selection of local agents and ask them round for their opinions. And I don't just pick 3 at random. That's the biggest mistake anyone can make. It really is. If you understand how the whole lead gen industry works, you'll understand why just picking 3. If you just think to yourself, I'll go and pick 3 agents, you'll end up picking 3 of the agents that spend the most money on capturing your lead before anyone else does. And those tend to be the bigger corporations with these big marketing campaigns that make sure that they hoover up your lead before small local agents can get to it. So you've got to try and make sure you get the 3 most reputable local agents. It doesn't matter. Maybe they are at a corporate. I'm not anti-corporate agents, because some of the managers at corporate agents are fantastic. But the point is, you should disregard agents big or small and look for the 3 most reputable agents where people say, yeah, they've been around a long time, they really know their patch, and then ask them around. Because is it true, Andrew? I said this in one of my videos a long time ago about the only way to find out the value of your home. And that is to have funded competing buyers. That's the only way to find out what you're actually selling your home for, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what, you've said it before, Charlie, that your home is only worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. Now, if someone's prepared to pay £1 million for a property that's worth 750,000, well, that's fine. Let them, at the end of the day. But if someone's only prepared to pay 500,000 for the house that's on the market at 750,000, then that's sadly proves the point. So yeah, it's very much about what it truly is worth. And I said earlier on about going and valuing as a market appraisal process as well, where I have a property that I've sold recently. I valued it this time last year at 595. It went on the market at 685 with a competitor agent. I've now sold that house as the 3rd agent that's had a chance to sell it, and I've sold it at 600,000.
Wow. Okay.
So I think that kind of highlights what certain agents will do to overinflate the value, just to win an instruction. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, what I've always said is basically how much you get for your home depends more on which agent you choose than anything else. Because a mediocre or a crap agent might get you 1 week offer and go, that's the only offer we've got. Do you want to sell it for that? And they need to move. So they go, well, if it's the only one, we'll have to take it. Doesn't mean the property is only worth that much, because a better agent will market it better, get competing offers, and get more money for it. So in that, a property is.
Well, I think that particular one, I think I would have sold for because the market was more buoyant. I think I would have got more. I would have got more value from it than just the 600,000 had I marketed it myself.
Right.
At 595.
I've got a great question here from Mad Mountain Man, who says, can you explain why over the last couple of years bank valuations have gone along with these astronomical rises? They've only helped create the problem we're now in instead of valuing sensibly.
Well, I mean, that's down to valuers at the end of the day who are agreeing to and valuing on behalf of the bank. But banks are prepared to lend. If they've been prepared to lend, then some do have an issue now. Yeah. Especially if there's a high loan to value.
Yeah. Alex Whittaker says, so in a nutshell, are sold house prices on Zoopla incorrect? No, the sold house prices that come from the land registry are actually the price the property sold for. But when you then ask Zoopla to value your house now, today, that's when they're just using random algorithms that aren't specific to your property at all. And they're specific to that property type in that area and all kinds of other things that factor into it. Okay. With rising energy costs, do EPC grades feed into valuations?
Really, really good question. energy efficiency of a property is going to factor massively in the coming years. Properties that have got solar, for example, that is owned, not leased, of course. Ground and air source heat pumps are always going to add strong value. So energy efficiency is really, really, really good for the more energy efficient the property, the better. I mean, I've done one recently that was a early 80s Scandinavian house, and it had an EPC rating as an A, but that was a 1980s property.
That's amazing. So, as a rule of thumb, would you say that if you're a homeowner in a position to outright purchase solar power or ground or air source heat pumps, that if you're planning to move, that's money you'll probably get back on the value of the property?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I say definitely. Likely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, I can see the comments on YouTube, but only I'm looking on a separate screen here and it's a bit late. Okay, here's a question. Alex Perry asks, will there be an increase in Gazundering? And is it now a legitimate tactic?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's legitimate. But I mean, at the end of the day, you've got, as a vendor, you need to have a good, you need a really decent agent to help you sell, and it's not all about trying to renege and anything like that. It's tactics are tactics, and different buyers will have different tactics.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll tell you, I get questions almost every day from buyers saying, Charlie, we had an offer accepted a few months ago. We were happy then, but there have been delays for whatever reason. Normally it's because the seller hasn't been able to find a new place to buy. We're now very nervous about continuing at this price, even though everything's been approved. We're now really nervous and we don't want to proceed. We do want to buy the house, but we want to renegotiate. We're not trying to gazunder. We're genuinely, the world has changed in the time between when we made the offer and now. What do you think we should do? And I always say to people, if they send me that question, I say, you got to trust your gut instinct. Like, if you feel like the price you agreed 2 or 3 months ago is now overpaying, then I would always trust your instincts and don't overpay. But also understand the risks that if you try to renegotiate, you may lose the property. It might kick yourself and would have been happy to stay. So that's always a personal choice. But I do see a lot of people who do want to move. And as I always say, if you want to move and you find a house you like and you can afford it, move. It doesn't matter what house prices are doing. Get into the home you want to live in, but don't overpay. And so, yeah, I mean, have you seen much renegotiating at a late stage?
Quite a bit, but they've been for genuine reasons. They haven't been for, oh well, the market's changed, so I'm only prepared to pay this. And if, as a vendor, anybody does come to you with that, then hold firm. Don't let somebody come along and fight that, because you will find another buyer. Probably at more than someone's prepared to renegotiate to, but it all depends on each particular situation.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, my answer to that question would differ to yours. I think that there are some sellers who are accepting small renegotiations rather than having to get back to square one and maybe not finding a buyer for a while. It's unique in each situation. It depends on the seller's reasons for selling and all that kind of stuff, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a question here, Charlie, that I've noticed. Can stigma caused by a property sitting on the market too long or returning to the market cause a lasting reduction in value?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's a very valid point, because again, I have another property that has recently been overvalued by another agent, and came to me sadly at the time where we had a bit of a change in the market a couple of months ago, and it was on at £150,000 more than I now have it on the market for. And it has caused a stigma for that property,
Right.
and that you don't get the inquiries for it.
Andy, could get a bit of echo from you? So if you're able to put your computer speaker down, if you can hear me through the phone, that would be great, because we're getting a bit of echo back on there. But okay, Thomas Moran has a question. A lot of my friends are now remortgaging, and they are now looking at selling as they can't afford the increased mortgage. Do you think this could cause big problems?
Well, yes, potentially, especially if they've bought at a high value, and then looking at the mortgage rates have increased and they haven't been on a long-term rate. Now, obviously, I'm not a financial advisor or mortgage broker or mortgage advisor, but what I can tell people is that I've been having conversations with mortgage brokers who are telling me that longer term mortgages are now seeing more sensible rates, whereas the short term mortgages are tending to get higher rates. So you may find, say, I don't know, I take a figure off the top of my head, but a 6% 2-year fixed, whereas you might find a 5% 5-year fixed.
Right. I don't know if you saw Martin Lewis on TV the other day saying that because of the mortgage stress tests, there's a scenario that's come out where when people are looking to switch mortgage provider to a new provider because they're coming to the end of a fixed rate, the current stress test rules rule them out of this cheaper mortgage, forcing them to go on their existing lender's standard variable rate, which is higher than the product they were going to switch to. That does sound like, that's, I can see that there's a real catch-22 there for both ways. They can take a cheaper mortgage, but they fail the stress test on it. It's weird. I actually think there's a lot of wild unpredictability coming next year because of all this. Every single person's mortgage situation. I mean, someone on here who said that they've got friends having to remortgage. Sorry, friends who can't afford the remortgage that are now selling. Well, where are they going to live? If they're being forced to sell because they can't afford their mortgage, are they going to be moving back in with parents? Or I assume they're going to be renting or downsizing. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
There's a question here, Charlie, about new builds. Did you see that one? Dave Pardo has asked that.
Go for it. Yeah. So he says, I've heard that new builds are overpriced compared to period properties. Given what you said about EPC ratings, is that true? And is the situation likely to flip now?
Well, there's always a new build premium, whichever way we look at it. And I think where you benefit from a new build purchase is towards the end of a development's, build process, where it gets to a stage where developer wants off-site, they want to sell the last remaining plots, etc. That's when a new build becomes a reasonable price, as in a price akin to a normal house sale.
Right.
As a rule, new builds are more expensive because they come with warranties, guarantees, etc., and generally speaking, stronger EPCs. With what I was referring to about EPCs was more about benefiting an existing property, with new technology, to aid that, and that will help. Don't forget, different councils have different criteria for their new builds, and so there are different criteria of what they need. Some will sort of insist on solar, for example, on the roof. Some will insist on hot water or PV solar dependent. Some will insist on air source heat pumps. I saw a development down in Exeter. I don't know if you're aware of this one, Charlie, with your sort of location stuff, but they've got now district heating in some of their sites, which was a real good experiment down in Devon. And that's all it's all about this EPC building and building the efficiency of a property.
District heating, I haven't heard of that.
So it's where there's boilers, you know, in a that service a whole load of properties.
Oh, a communal heat source.
Yeah,
Communal,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that's a bit like a managed. That's a bit like a block, isn't it? A bit like a.
Yeah, but you have individual controls in each of the houses and metered. But yes, it's just a way of trying to benefit the efficiency.
Yeah. This is a great question. JW asks, when do you think the majority of sellers will finally realize that the market is falling away? I was speaking to someone earlier today who is completely in denial.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the problem with the way the market has been. You know, the market's been so strong, so denial is exactly there. You know, and there will be agents that are playing on that denial with vendors, and they'll come out and be you know, they'll talk about what the vendor wants to hear, basically, then it becomes hard to sell, especially if you have a vendor that is in denial and is deluded about the value of their property. You know, it will then just sit there. And you know, I've had to have properties on my books that are overvalued because that's what a vendor wants to sell it for.
Well, I think the worst scenario is that's quite an admission actually that you just made. It's good for people to hear that. So what you're saying is you made the choice to tell them what they wanted to hear to get their business, even though you felt
No, sorry. What I mean is, what if a vendor has told me they want me to sell the house, but this is what they want to sell it for.
Oh, okay.
And so I've then got to market it at a price that I believe is too high to, you know, keep that vendor happy.
And do you tell that vendor that at the time? Do you say that you believe it's too high, but you'll try?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the most important
thing.
You know,
because my valuation may be lower anyway, or you know, my when I do an MA market appraisal on the property, that may be a lower valuation to somebody else, but they say, well, I'd like you to, you know, I prefer you to sell it, but it needs to be at that level.
I'm always trying to reinforce the message to anyone watching this that the biggest mistake to make when you're moving house is to think that all agents are the same. All agents are so different. I mean, there's a wide spectrum of different kinds of agents. And I think what some people are seeing now is the worst of both worlds, where you've got an unrealistic seller who wants silly money for their house, talking to an agent who genuinely thinks that it's worth that much because they're just a crap agent and they're not being realistic. And so they're feeding each other. Yeah, it's definitely going to be. And of course, those agents are making a rod for their own back because they're never going to sell it. And they're never going to make a fee, and they're going to make themselves look silly, and they're going to talk themselves into a real problem. So, but that's why when people say to me, Charlie, I found a house I like, but I don't know what to offer. What percentage should I offer? And I can never say that because it depends whether the agent marketing it is intelligent and has marketed it at a sensible price that's actually going to sell, or whether they put stupid money on it, which can sometimes be 20% over what the market's at. I mean, that Rightmove, it was that interesting figure out today, right? You know, Rightmove's average asking price compared with the average transaction price is something like 24% higher. Now, obviously, average asking prices include properties that never sell, and there's loads of those that sit on Rightmove. We've all seen them, haven't we? They sit there for months and months and months and never sell. And some agents are happy to leave those there because it makes the rest of their stock look cheap. And so there's always going to be some differential between average asking prices and average sold prices. But I think it's worth pointing out to everybody that even in the last couple of years, when prices were going through the roof, the overall national average price still never got anywhere near the overall average asking price, which is really worth. So when people are thinking what their house is worth, going and looking on Rightmove is not how to work out what your house is worth, is it?
No.
Never has been. Right, we're marching on towards the 1 hour mark again. Thank you for your questions, guys, and thank you very much for your patience with our issues earlier. I'm going to try and find one more question to wrap up with. Okay, let me say, do you have one that you've got that you'd like to answer, Andrew?
Well, there's quite an interesting one here. Andy XTR has asked, what is the best way to negotiate when the valuer's price is much lower than an agent's price?
That's a good question.
Now, yeah, when you have when you have your mortgage valuation carried out, and if they go to down value as a result of that, then it can be, especially if we were talking about the renegotiation earlier, and it's all about what what a vendor's prepared to do to actually get that sale over the line. But it's definitely if a valuer for a lender does down value, then it's always useful to take that into account with a negotiation.
Right. Okay. All right, Andy, thank you so much. I'm going to call it a night there. I'm just going to wrap up with the audience. But is there anything else you want to add in, or
I think you should ban some bloke called Chris who keeps sending stupid comments.
I saw that and I blocked him on this thing. I don't know if it's worked, but yeah, don't worry, I will find him and he will be permanently banned. I never have that. So he must be new to my channel, otherwise he wouldn't have done that. So apologies for whoever that is. And guys, just for anyone who's new to the channel, basically I encourage disagreement and discourse and debate, but I have a zero tolerance for personal remarks, which are just childish and immature and don't add any value to the conversation whatsoever. So any childish remarks, instant life ban from the channel. That's my policy. Anyway, so I'll take care of that, definitely. But yeah, anything else you want to add in to my audience of 2/3 first-time buyers and about 1/3 sellers and buyers is my audience. But they're all movers. But is there anything you want to add to sign off with?
Well, if people want to follow me, and you when we come in on the podcast, then feel free to. I'm sure you'll share the podcast. I will about stuff, and feel free to tune in if you want to hear more of it. But
I will.
There we go.
It's the right move ? Property podcast. If you just search property podcast, I think it comes up on most podcast platforms. But I will immediately after this. I'll put a link to that in the description underneath this on YouTube.
Sorry about the audio.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, sorry everyone about the audio. These things happen when it's live. It's live telly for you. That's kind of like live telly, isn't it? Andy, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your insights and your thoughts and your contribution. And I'll talk to you soon. I'll be talking to you about the podcast soon. So, but thanks a lot. Thanks for coming.
No worries.
All right.
Take care.
See you. Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much for being patient with our audio issues there. And if any of you've got any final questions for me before I go, pop them in there in YouTube now. If anyone is still watching this on LinkedIn or Facebook and has a question, I apologize that I can't see your questions. I'm on Twitter. I don't think Andrew is on Twitter, actually. Moving_Charlie is where you can interact with me most frequently, is where I do most of my interaction. Moving_Charlie. Or if you just search Moving Home with Charlie on Twitter. Oh, yes, Andy is. I'll put a link to his Twitter as well. He's at Andy Simmonds, which is MMONDS on Simmonds, at Andy Simmonds. But you don't use it. Well, that's no good, is it? I'm Moving_Charlie. And I just want to wrap up, guys. I want to show you this again. I want anyone who needs to move. I'm here to help all movers. I'm not on buyer's side or on seller's side. It's about the move, not the money for me. And too many people worry too much about the money and overlook the non-financial need for moving and the reasons for moving and moving on with your life. And so I am now particularly worried about sellers signing up with the wrong agents and then being trapped in a long-term sole agency agreement. So just remember, don't sign the sole agency contract. If you find an agent that you like and they're saying, just remember to ask them at the point of signing, how long am I locked in for? And if they say 12 weeks, say no. If you want to sell my house, my condition is rolling 2 weeks notice or maximum 4 weeks or just not 12 weeks. It's too long. Work out what is the longest you're prepared to give them. You are entitled to dictate your terms as a seller, right? A contract is a two-way thing. And they might say, oh, it's policy, this, that, or the other. I say, well, then fine, you can't sell my house because I'm not going to risk being locked into an agent that's promised the earth, delivered nothing, and then leaves me sitting on the shelf gathering dust. All right. So don't sign a long-term sole agency agreement. I really mean it, guys. Don't sign it. If you find an agent that you like and you want to go with, and they're sticking to their guns about the sole agency, don't sign with them. Message me. Instagram is a great place to send me private messages because I can answer with audio. And if you're watching this and you're currently tied in and stuck with an agent that won't let you out, ring them up and just say, look, you failed to sell my house. You haven't delivered on your promises. I don't want you to sell my house anymore. I don't want to be on the market with you. So either release me from the contract, or I'm going to tell all my friends locally on social media that that agent, has tied me into a long-term agency agreement, is not getting viewings, and won't release me when I want to change agents. And most agents would rather avoid negative local publicity and will agree to release you if you have grounds for doing that, provided that you stick to the truth. Don't lie about whatever they've done. Just be honest about the fact that they've disappointed you in whatever way they have, and make sure that you don't fall into that trap. Anyway, guys, I'm going to call it. It's over an hour now. Thank you very much. Did any of you have a question? Okay. Rebecca James, this is my last question. How can you get sellers to reduce their price if they are asking for way too high prices if you want to buy now and not have to wait till next year? That, unfortunately, is going to depend on the seller's situation. You've got to remember that some sellers cannot lower their price because maybe it won't be enough to pay off their mortgage, or they cannot lower their price because they've agreed to buy somewhere else, and the purchase of their new property depends on them selling their existing property for a certain price. So some sellers just simply, in their mind, cannot drop the price. There are other ones who are just in delusion and denial, and all you can do is be patient. But what I say is, tell them what your new offer is, leave it on the table. If you want to pressure them into hurrying up, which is your right as a buyer, you can say, look, your property is not worth more than this amount to me. That is my final offer. It's on the table for 7 days. If you don't accept it within 7 days, we will be looking for other properties. That's something else that you can do. You're entitled. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing to do. You're entitled to do it. But you cannot force a seller to lower their price. They may have circumstances which are reasons that they cannot lower their price. All right. But if they're just in delusion and denial, I don't know what you can do about that. I saw a quote on Twitter earlier, which is, it's so easy to fool people, but it's almost impossible to convince someone that they have been fooled. So if a seller has been fooled into thinking their house is worth loads of money, which is easy to do, it's really hard to convince them that they've been fooled. On that happy note, guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for persisting. Follow me on Twitter, moving_Charlie. Send me your private message questions anywhere. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram is my favorite place to get messages because I can reply with a voice message, which is much quicker than typing. And I will see you on the next one. Lots of videos coming soon.